Raphael stood at the edge of the plaza where the streetlights barely reached the cobblestones, staring at a photograph he'd touched so many times the edges had gone soft. His daughter smiled back at him from the paper, frozen in a moment that felt like another lifetime. 6 months had passed since Elena had disappeared on her way home from school, and every morning he woke up believing this would be the day he'd find her. Every night proved him wrong. He'd walked these streets until his shoes wore thin. He'd knocked on doors until his knuckles bled. He'd shown Elena's picture to shopkeepers, taxi drivers, street vendors, anyone who might have seen something. Most people shook their heads. Some promised to keep an eye out. A few looked away too quickly, and those were the ones that kept him awake at night. The police had moved on. They told him gently, with practiced sympathy, that after this much time the chances were slim. They suggested grief counseling. They stopped returning his calls. But Raphael couldn't stop. Stopping meant accepting that his little girl was gone, and he wasn't ready for that. He would never be ready for that. It was a Tuesday evening when the boy appeared. Raphael was sitting on a bench near the cathedral, exhausted and hungry, but too restless to go home to his empty apartment. The child approached slowly, maybe 10 years old, with dark circles under his eyes and clothes that looked slept in. He stood a few feet away, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Mister?" the boy said, his voice barely above a whisper. Raphael looked up. "Yes." "Are you the man looking for the girl? Elena?" Raphael's whole body went still. He stood up so fast the boy took a step back. "You've seen her? Where is she?" The boy's hands were shaking. "I can show you, but you have to come now. And you can't tell anyone you're coming." Every instinct told Raphael this would be a trap, but he didn't care. If there was even a chance, he had to take it. "Show me," he said. They walked through streets that grew narrower and darker, away from the tourist areas and into neighborhoods where laundry hung between buildings and the smell of cooking oil drifted from open windows. The boy didn't speak, just kept glancing back to make sure Raphael was following. His fear was obvious, and it made Raphael's stomach turn. What had this child seen? They stopped in front of a house that looked like it might collapse if you leaned against it too hard. Cracked plaster, shutters hanging crooked, weeds growing to the front step. The boy pointed at the door. "She's in there," he whispered. "On the second floor. The room at the end of the hall." "Who else is inside?" Raphael asked. "My mother. She'll be in the kitchen." The boy's voice cracked. "Please don't hurt her." Before Raphael could ask what he meant, the boy turned and ran. Raphael stood alone in the failing light, his heart hammering so hard he could feel it in his throat. He tried the door. It opened. Inside, the house was dim and smelled like mildew and old cigarettes. He could hear someone moving around in the back, the clatter of dishes. Raphael climbed the stairs as quietly as he could, each creak of the wood like a gunshot in the silence. The hallway stretched ahead of him, 3 closed doors. He went to the last one. When he opened it, he saw her. Elena sat on a narrow bed, her back against the wall, wearing a dress he'd never seen before. She was thinner than he remembered, her hair longer and uncombed, but it was her. It was his daughter. She looked up at him with wide eyes that didn't quite focus, like she was seeing something far away. "Elena," he said, and his voice broke on her name. She blinked. "Papa?" He crossed the room in 2 steps and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly he was afraid he might hurt her. But he couldn't let go. She felt small and fragile, and for a long moment she didn't move. Then her hands came up and gripped his jacket, and she started to cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears that soaked into his shirt while her whole body trembled. "I've got you," Raphael whispered. "I've got you. You're safe now." He heard footsteps on the stairs. A woman appeared in the doorway, maybe 40, with tired eyes and hands that twisted together nervously. She wasn't what he expected. She didn't look dangerous or cruel. She looked scared. "You're her father," she said. It wasn't a question. "What did you do to her?" Raphael's voice was low and dangerous. He positioned himself between the woman and Elena. "I didn't hurt her. I swear I didn't hurt her." The woman's voice shook. "I gave her food. I kept her clean. I never touched her except to help." "You kidnapped her." "No." Someone else took her. They brought her to me. They said to keep her here until they came back. The woman's face crumpled. I didn't want to, but they said if I didn't, they'd take my son instead. Raphael stared at her. Behind him, Elena's breathing had steadied, but she still held on to him like she might disappear if she let go. Who are they? He asked. I don't know their real names. They pay people like me to hide the children until they can move them somewhere else. Out of the country, I think. I never asked. I was too afraid to ask. You should have gone to the police. They said they have people in the police. They said if I talked, they'd know. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. I have a son. I couldn't risk it, but he found a notebook. What notebook? The woman walked to a dresser and pulled out a small leather book from the bottom drawer. The man who brought Elena left it here by accident. My son found it before I could hide it. There are names in it, addresses, dates, other children. She held it out to Raphael. He's the one who went looking for you. He thought if you came, maybe you could stop all of it. Raphael took the notebook with his free hand. He flipped it open and saw pages filled with neat handwriting, names he didn't recognize, places scattered across the city, and dates going back years. His hands tightened on the book. How long until they come back? He asked. Tomorrow night. They always come at night. Raphael looked down at Elena, who was watching him with those faraway eyes. Then he looked at the woman, who seemed to shrink under his gaze. You're coming with us, he said. You're going to tell the police everything you know, and you're going to pray they believe you. My son, your son is the only reason I'm not calling them right now to have you arrested on the spot. He saved my daughter, so I'll make sure he's safe too. But you don't get to hide anymore. The woman nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. They left the house together just as the streetlights flickered on. The boy was waiting outside, sitting on the curb with his arms wrapped around his knees. When he saw them, he jumped up. Elena, he said quietly. Raphael's daughter lifted her head from his shoulder and looked at the boy. You brought my papa, she said. Her voice was small and rusty, like she hadn't used it much. I'm sorry it took so long, the boy said. I didn't know how to find him. You did good, Raphael told him. You did a brave thing. At the police station, everything happened fast. Officers surrounded them the moment Raphael said his daughter's name. They took Elena to be examined by a doctor. They took the notebook and the woman into separate rooms. They asked Raphael the same questions over and over until his head pounded. But through it all, he kept one eye on the boy, who sat alone in a plastic chair looking small and lost. It took 3 days for the full story to come out. The notebook led police to a network that had been operating for almost a decade, moving children across borders and selling them to people who asked no questions. Some were returned to families who could pay. Others weren't. The woman's testimony helped them arrest 4 people that week, with more arrests promised. The woman was charged but given a reduced sentence for cooperating. Raphael struggled with that. Part of him wanted her to suffer the way he'd suffered. But another part, the part that watched her son's face when they took her away, understood that she'd been trapped in her own kind of hell. Elena came home on a Saturday morning. The apartment felt different with her in it again, like someone had turned the lights back on. She didn't talk much at first. The doctor said that was normal, that she needed time. Raphael didn't push. He just made her favorite foods and sat with her while she drew pictures, and slowly, day by day, she started to come back to herself. The boy's name was Diego. With his mother in prison and no other family, social services planned to place him in foster care. Raphael thought about it for one night. Then he made some calls. The process wasn't easy. There were interviews and home visits and mountains of paperwork. But 6 months later, Diego moved into the second bedroom. Elena helped him unpack his few belongings, and Raphael watched them from the doorway. These 2 children who'd found each other in the darkness. Do you think she'll forgive me? Diego asked one night at dinner. He was talking about his mother. I think she already has, Raphael said. And I think one day you'll forgive her too. Diego looked down at his plate. I was so scared. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. You were, Elena said quietly. It was the most she'd said in days. You saved me. We saved each other, Diego said. Raphael reached across the table and squeezed the boy's shoulder. It had taken him months to find his daughter, but he'd found something else too. He'd found proof that even in the worst situations, even when people were trapped and afraid, kindness could still break through. A frightened boy had risked everything because he knew it was right, and that choice had brought them all here, to this table, to this moment of fragile peace. Elena still had nightmares. Diego sometimes woke up crying for his mother. Raphael still checked the locks on the doors twice before bed. But they were healing, all three of them, one day at a time. And every evening, when the streetlights came on, Raphael would stand at the window and think about the boy who'd led him through those dark streets. The boy who now sat at his table, did homework at his kitchen counter, and called him Papa in a voice that still sounded surprised by its own hope. One child saved, 2 children found, and a father who learned that sometimes the family you build is just as real as the one you were born into.